Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, a show that will help you transform your marketing from mere messaging to programs that break the rules and make a difference. Join the movement today and learn non-traditional techniques that give you an edge. Now, here's your Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
Today we're going to take a trip to the circus and we're going to talk to Alma Derricks, who is the VP Sales and Marketing Resident Shows Division of Cirque du Soleil. Welcome, Alma.
Thank you, Drew.
It's so cool to be talking to you. And I don't think that, there are some folks that might dream of joining the circus, but not too many people start out thinking that they're actually going to be in the marketing role at an organization like Cirque. Talk to me about your sort of career path and what you did that led you to this current role.
Sure. Yeah, the circus sort of finds you, Drew. I think, it's hard to imagine. I can't say that 10 years ago this was on my roadmap, as it were. I think that it's something that appears as an opportunity, and I think one of the through lines of what I've done throughout my career is that I run toward moments of inflection. And Cirque is definitely at that kind of moment of inflection. They have a new ownership team that came in July last year. And so it's a new moment. And what's exciting about that is that it's a time when all the questions are back on the table. Those moments of inflection are introspective and open and complicated at the same time. But I love that part where you get to ask all the questions on the list, top to bottom, without any regard for, that's how we've always done it. And so that's what I walked into. In terms of my background, I've worked most of my career in media and entertainment across a variety of different platforms, everything from television to print to licensing and even digital, starting in the 90s. And, also as a part of that, I spent time as a management consultant. So because there's a natural connection between consumer-facing brands and television and ad-supported media, I had a lot of insight into working with those companies over the years. And so as a consultant, was able to cross over from both media and entertainment into things like hospitality and technology and telecom and packaged goods. So I think the answer to the question you're asking about, so how did all that connect to the circus near the end, or most recently, the way all that connects to the circus is that because of this new ownership team, because they're a private equity firm, I think one of the things that was really interesting about my background is not only the time I've spent with all sorts of major franchises, entertainment franchises, everything from Star Trek to Dilbert to Peanuts, but the fact that I have some comfort with financiers, with consultants, the folks that are now a part of our team on the private equity side. It was a nice combination at the time and something that really helped to boost the team at Cirque, to just have someone to help to bridge and translate through this whole process.
Wow, it's an amazing background. I love that expression that you move towards moments of inflection. You are a moth to the light, if you will.
I'm not proud of it. I'm actually not proud of it. It's an illness.
No, I would argue it's not. I have to tell you a funny story about the circus. So when I was growing up, I had extremely large feet, and I had size 13 feet, and
wow.
and I was 5'6". And so I always told people that if I didn't grow, well, I'm perfect. I will be able to join the circus. I won't even need the clown shoes. I will just have them. Fortunately, I did grow the 6 inches literally when I turned 18, and it all worked out well. But I always had that as a plan B. So here you are,
great.
Living the dream. So what do you do when you're not building traffic for Cirque?
I stop working. It's as simple as that. I wish I had a more elegant answer about a hobby or something I do other than just stopping.
There you go.
So it's a lot of powering down. There's a lot of red wine involved. And I just stop doing things. That's sort of what happens, especially with all the travel. And because my job ends up being 9 to 5 and then our shows are happening in the evening, it's kind of all consuming. So when I'm not working, I don't work.
There you go. And that's, and I think a lot of people don't actually appreciate the value of that, you have to let the engine rest and recover in order for it to then rev at a high degree. So what's your personal superpower, or perhaps one that you wish you had?
I mean, I was thinking about this, that it's, thing I've heard over the years from my colleagues is that I have a brutal but diplomatic honesty about me. So, I'm very willing to, as I said about these points of inflection, ask the tough question, ask the question especially from the outside in, from a consumer's perspective, ask questions about relevance. Will they really care? I think about the movie Big, one of my favorite movies with Tom Hanks, and when he's the child trapped in a man's body and he's working at the agency, he just raises his hand and they're presenting a new toy and he just says, "But that's not fun. Why would I do that? That's not fun." And so I kind of take a lot of pride in being willing to raise my hand and do that. But, I am told, and I hope it's true, that I can still do it with a velvet glove without, it's not about insulting or embarrassing anybody. It's just about getting to the core of that issue. And I think, too, a real key is you have to kind of respect and acknowledge all the superpowers that are around you. I've never been able to accomplish anything meaningful where I didn't have, the Avengers around me. And so kind of knowing where the limits of your superpowers are and letting other superpowers just flourish and shine is another key piece of that. So I think you have to know when you're standing on your own as Wonder Woman and, when you're one of 5 or 6 as an Avenger.
I love that. Thank you for pushing that analogy farther than I have. And I particularly enjoy the brutal honesty thing. Our logo has been a saw since we were founded, and we always talk about just cutting through. But the truth is, I really just am a person who likes to cut right to the chase. Can we just get to issue at hand? So I would love to have, perhaps you want to share one story that would help us understand how this works in action.
Well, I mean, I think that it's one of my favorites comes from the archives way back in the Jurassic days of the internet. One of the things I did early on back in the early 90s was I put the Dilbert comic strip online. So I built the Dilbert Zone, built the ad program, built the merchandising program around it. So this was 1995. So the internet was still really new. The rules and regulations of the road were still being figured out, and I think it's a little bit related to my brutal honesty, but I think it's certainly an insight into my dark sense of humor. One of the things that we used to do there, I was with a company called United Media that was a part of the Scripps Howard family.
Sure.
And generally, there were no lawyers who understood what we were doing in digital. There were no contracts to govern the kinds of things we were working on. But we were up against kind of day-to-day things that are still common in digital media today. One of which was that we were having folks that were building their early websites referencing our comic strip and drawing it into their own site. And so it was important to us to have our comic available on our site exclusively so we could build our business. And so largely these were college students at the time. Those were, most of the sites that were online were still housed at universities. So these are college kids that had a site and they would just pull our strip in every day and then they continue on with their blog and their entries and other photos. And so we had to shut them down, but it was, we had to think of a creative way at the time because these are fans, obviously. These are not people you want to antagonize. These are innocent people who are just fans of the strip and want to include it because it's great content for their site. And so Scott Adams and I, who's the creator of Dilbert, rather than sending cease and desist letters, we would just go to these websites. And actually, the other funny thing about really early websites, if you remember this, is that people treated them a little bit like resumes.
Right.
So they'd have their name at the top, and they'd literally have their address and phone number and, a little bio and, things that they did. It was very strange. It was sort of like you just scanned in your resume. So we would dial the number on the website, Scott and I together, and basically call and say, a combination of, I would do the bad cop, I'm calling from United Media, Copyright Act, fine and imprisonment, that kind of thing. And if we got someone's mother on the phone, the mothers would go insane, because a lot of times these are their home addresses, and this is their home number. So I would say fine and imprisonment, Copyright Act, and the mothers would go, oh my God, no, please don't put my baby in jail. And then they'd, say, we'll take care of it, and the site would disappear. Or if we got the actual perpetrator, got the perp on the phone, that was even better. Scott would just say to them, hey, dude, stop stealing my shit. Just don't do it. And they go, who is this? Because it's Scott Adams. And they go, no way. And he'd go, way. And they go, no way. And he'd go, way. And we would just have, and he's like, it's really you? Like, absolutely. He's like, dude, I do this for a living. You can't steal my shit. Come to the site. Come log into the site and check it out. Tell your friends to check out the site. But you can't just steal it and suck it into your site. And we'd have these really granular conversations. And it was one of the most delightful things they did. Once a week, we would hop on the phone on a conference line and just start making these calls. And it was just the best. And it's something that's never left me as a really tangible, granular way of thinking about the fact they're real human beings on the other side of these sites. Once you, especially in digital, once you've opened that channel, it's a real two-way conversation. It's not a broadcast. It's not a top-down like traditional media. And in addition to those conversations, I'd talk to our fans all the time, good, bad, and ugly. They'd have comments, they'd have criticisms, they'd call me up, I'd get a phone call or I'd get an email. And to this day, it's one of the lessons that's still really important to me about how you really think about engaging with fans. They're that close to you, they're that touchable, they're not on a spreadsheet, and they're not, two-dimensional. These are real people with lives and senses of humor and interest in what you're doing. Anybody who's actually pirating your material is actually paying you a backhanded compliment. So what do you do with that, and how do you deal with it? And that kind of nuance really matters to me.
I love that story. It's really terrific, and I would imagine that was a circus of its own kind back then. So bad pun, but that allows us to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to really get into some of the things that Alma has been doing at Cirque du Soleil. So hang on.
Renegade Thinkers Unite is brought to you by Social Media Explorer, the website that explores the world of social media from the inside out. Great advice from today's leading social media columnists and experts at socialmediaexplorer.com. That's socialmediaexplorer.com.
Okay, we're back. So this is Drew Neiser, and I'm here with Alma Derricks, who is the VP of Sales and Marketing for the Resident Shows Division. So let's talk about the Resident Shows Division at Cirque du Soleil. What is it, and what are you doing?
So there are two big moving parts of Cirque du Soleil, the two traditional businesses. There's the Resident Shows Division, which is my group, my portfolio. These are the shows that are nailed down to the ground. So that includes our shows in Las Vegas and in Orlando. Then we also have another major group that's the touring shows division. So like it sounds, these are the shows that move around in the tents or that tour in arenas. So those are the two major elements of the company. We also have a number of other resident shows. We've got a new theatrical division in New York that presents a show on Broadway now, a new Cirque show on Broadway. So there are other components as we grow and expand, but those are the two big moving parts. So for our shows in Las Vegas and Orlando, there are 8 of them. We sell about 20,000 seats a night. As many as 20,000 seats a night are available. So it's a lot of inventory in a very, very busy town. So what I'm responsible for doing is just making sure that we remain top of mind. So my job is all about keeping Cirque top of mind. So for us, that's usually an interesting continuum of needing to stay on your radar, needing to have us somewhere in your peripheral vision for some period of time, because you likely won't see us more than once a year. Even if we're on the touring side coming to your town, it's not more than once a year. So I need to stay in your your peripheral vision, and then once the actual decision is made and you purchased your ticket and you have your hotel room set and you make your trip to Vegas or to Orlando, at that point it's really important that we are there breaking through that noise, reminding you that we're there and that we're dazzling and that we're the most exciting thing that you can do in the evening. And that comes on the heels of, a lot of years. Cirque is over 30 years old. For a number of those years, for the mass majority of those years, Cirque grew organically because it was new and different and dazzling. To give you an example, a show like O, which is our flagship show at the Bellagio in Las Vegas, when it opened, it was sold out for 2.5 years.
Wow.
So marketing as a concept is a relatively new thing for Cirque. We were in the lucky position of having something so unique that it just grew and grew and grew. Now we're at a different stage because we're more established. We've been in Vegas in total for over 20 of those 30 years. And so we face a lot of different challenges in the market. You've got the Vegas has gone through a number of reinventions over that time. These days, there's a brand new arena, a 17,000 seat arena that will soon have sports teams, has major concerts now. There are new venues going in as well, new theater venues. This is the era of the big residency show. Things like J-Lo and Britney and Celine are all now an important part of that landscape. There's these giant special event residencies. And so we have to keep reinventing ourselves in a space that, as you know, and as your listeners know from going to Vegas, it's a really loud environment. And so we have to always be the loudest part of that environment and make sure that you're still aware that we're around and that we're exciting and that we're vital.
And it's so interesting. It's a fascinating challenge. And you went from sort of basically taking orders, right? I've seen many of the shows and they're all wonderful. And talk a little bit about portfolio management, because everything's Cirque, but there's O, and then there's, various brands. And so as you're thinking about sort of, if you will, reinvention and or reinvigorating or, just driving ticket sales, how do you manage sort of Cirque, the Uber brand, versus O and the what we'll call the product that someone could actually go see?
It's a great question. And in Vegas, we have a unique situation that's atypical for the company, because you think about my colleagues on the touring side, when they come to town, when they roll the circus into town, like it has been for hundreds of years, it's an event. Right. And this magical tent lands, and so it's unique and it's singular and it's there for a short period of time, and then it's going to disappear. And so there's a lot of energy that creates. What you're hitting on is something really different for Las Vegas, because we have so many resident shows in one place. One of the most troubling things I hear anecdotally or in surveys or when we talk to customers is the misunderstanding that there are that many different shows. Some people think there's one show with a lot of great creative,
right?
Broadcasting all about the same one show. O, as we were talking about, O stands alone and has really, found a niche for itself because it's a unique water show. And so sometimes I hear, there's O, or a lot of times the water show, and then there's Cirque du Soleil, as if there are two shows in town. So one of the real challenges we have is almost flipping the brand script in Vegas a bit. Not that they all aren't Cirque du Soleil shows, but in Vegas, we need to elevate the show itself, sort of above the fold, brought to you by Cirque du Soleil, to really give you a sense of and explain more, I think, more granularly the difference between these shows. They all have very, very different personalities. And the thing that I've been working on quite a bit is how do you communicate that as if each show is the only show you have, not just averaging it across the portfolio. Hey, if you like Cirque, then there are all these different flavors. It's not like an ice cream parlor. What if this is the only flavor of ice cream we have, and who do I want to take that to? And live with the fact that, for example, for let's say a show like Ka, which is a good and evil story. It's action-packed. It's, there's fighting, there's martial arts. It's a very comic book-like experience. That show may appeal to a certain segment of people in a way that I may never get them to cross over to see O, which is more of an opera, if you will. And that's okay. To not discriminate against an idea or an outreach effort simply because it doesn't average across the portfolio. go ahead and let those moments happen where it's organic, that this may appeal to you as someone who enjoys martial arts or MMA. We hear that all the time about Ka, and let that be. Similarly, we've got two shows in particular that are very heavy on choreography. The Beatles' Love is one of them, and the Michael Jackson show, Michael Jackson 1. Both very, very heavily choreographed shows with professional dancers, not just circus performers. If
Right.
you like dance, these two are going to be interesting to you, and maybe you could care less about Ka. And that's okay. So that's a piece of it. And then I think the other really important thing that we've really started to put into play, especially in Las Vegas, I think one of the next new frontiers for us with Cirque is allowing customers behind the curtain a little bit more. It's something that traditionally our founder was very, very cautious about, and in the early days of social media was very, very uncomfortable with behind-the-scenes footage or rehearsal footage and things like that. But the world's changed, and I think the expectation that I can peek behind that curtain is already there. It's something we can't put back in the bottle. So trying to find ways to facilitate that, either through the things we're doing in social media and with social content, or, you know, all the way out to experiences we're creating live in Las Vegas that are complete behind the curtain experiences that go beyond just the show experience from the audience perspective.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's fun. I have a friend here in New York who is actually creating sort of VIP Broadway experiences where you pay more for the ticket, but you then get a talk back with the crowd. Maybe you get to go backstage, and I mean with a talk back with the actors, and you get to go backstage, and maybe get a picture. Various things like that to create a much more intimate experience, and certainly that's. An interesting way. What would you say is, as you look at this, because this is a really interesting, lots of moving pieces, and as you said, you came in with the ability to sort of start from a clean slate. What would you look at now so far and say, I'm really proud of this from a marketing standpoint that we were able to get this done, and you've been there a relatively short period of time?
Sure. I think, from a marketing standpoint, certainly it's been a fun year. I think our highest profile achievement was actually rebranding the Beatles' Love. And I didn't really know it until we were sort of midstream, but Cirque has never done that with a show, an existing show. Most of that creative work goes in at the top as the original poster is created and the original key art is created, but we've never gone back in and reconceived and rebranded a show midstream. And so for the 10th anniversary of the Beatles' Love, we went through and did just that and completely redid visuals. We also made quite a few changes in the show, and technology changes, music changes. So it was a really interesting moment to kind of go in and rethink the entire way we were approaching getting that messaging out. So that was something that was unusual, and I, again, didn't know until we were already knee deep that it was unprecedented. So that was one that I'm proud that we got through and succeeded at so well. But I think too, the other thing that really excites me, and it's related to this peek behind the curtain thing, is that more than the experiences like the ones you're describing, we're certainly expanding our offerings around behind the scenes and meet and greets and photo opportunities and tours. But we've actually created an entire line of business called Spark that is we take the metaphor that is Cirque and use it as a learning laboratory for business groups. So we do corporate training, we do team building, and what's interesting is that it can start with panels and quick opportunities to have conversations, or we'll custom create curriculum. We've brought companies like Adobe and Google onto the stage and interacting with our audience, with our performers and with our companies. It's a combination of an amazing bucket list moment, but it's also a chance to really learn about trust and team building and operational excellence and customer service and things like that in a very tangible, visceral sort of way. And so what makes me the most proud about that is that, part of this this process that I go through when I'm new to an organization and I'm there and tasked with being a change agent while things are going through so much change and flux. I love the fact that we were able to build Spark as an offshoot business that's not exactly what our core business is. It certainly leverages the theaters, certainly leverages the shows and performers, but at the same time, we found a new way to create access, to create excitement about the brand, and then also create an entirely new line of business that's just taken off like a rocket. So we're really excited.
Renegade Thinkers Unite is brought to you by Social Media Explorer, the website that explores the world of social media from the inside out. Great advice from today's leading social media columnists and experts at socialmediaexplorer.com. That's socialmediaexplorer.com.
I want to go back to the rebranding of the Beatles Love, and you made a point there that I think is really interesting, and a question and an observation. The observation is that it's one thing just to change the visuals. It's another thing to change the product too. And I think a lot of times, people make the mistake of putting a new coat of paint on, but not fixing the house, right? And because you did those things, I'm imagining, because I remember seeing Love when it first came out, that part of that is getting people like me to say, hey, I saw it, but maybe it's a little bit different. I loved it then. Is it part of that strategy is also to sort of perhaps get people to see it again on a next visit?
Well, certainly it gives you a reason. It creates a new before and after, especially if you're a Beatles fan and especially if you enjoyed the original. But also one of the things that is true about Cirque's longevity, our longest show in Las Vegas has been there for 20 years. Mystere was the original production over at Treasure Island. One of the things that happens is that technology changes and improves on you in that amount of time. And so Cirque has always prided itself on the way that it's taken technology and artistry and put those two things together. And what we did with the reimagining of the Beatles Love, also because you have some of the founding members of the Beatles still involved. You certainly have Apple Corps and the members of the family still involved. And so they are still creators themselves. And so these things aren't static. So it seemed very natural as the 10th anniversary approached to take another look at it, both technically, to really rethink what are some of the new things, new technologies, new projections that we've done on the stage, which are very different. How can we incorporate those things that are now state of the art into what we're doing now that we're opening up the walls in this remodel? But also we took the chance, especially if you saw the original show, there's a lot of nostalgia to it. And as Dominic Champagne, the director, describes it, I think he says it well, that it's very sepia and has a feeling of an old photograph. There's a lot of nostalgia as we go through the early stages, especially through the war years and sort of the emergence of the Beatles and, the British invasion and those sorts of things. We really reworked a lot of the pacing of that and sort of moved past the nostalgia piece of it to make it much more colorful, and in doing so make it more current and more vital. And what's really interesting is as you listen to Beatles lyrics and as you look at the show, there's still so many issues and themes that are as relevant today and as immediate today as they were in the 60s. Almost to a fault. Some things that we'd rather not have be, rearing their heads again. And yet that current sense of it, that urgency of it, is something we just wanted to reinforce by bringing, bringing some of the technology up to speed, and also bringing just the look and feel and pacing of the show up to speed. So it's a living thing, and to Cirque's credit, given that our shows don't come and go typically, we have shows that live for many, many years at a time. My favorite show, my very first show, Kidam, ended its run after 29 years.
Wow.
Just earlier this year. So because of that, you always have to, just step back a bit and be a little introspective and take a look at what you're doing and just see if it still holds or if there are places where you can improve it. So the fact that we're this far in is just a testament to the longevity of the brand. It's a time to be introspective and a time to freshen the paint sometimes.
It's such an interesting brand, and certainly one that has distinguished itself by product creativity. I'm curious clearly you have a metric. You could look at ticket sales every night and say, okay, we either filled the seats or we didn't, and that would be one measure that I would imagine would be probably top of mind. Are there any other measures that matter in terms of the evaluation of your job?
Sure. Well, you name the key one. Certainly, with a gated business, you live and die by ticket sales. So I think that's the primary one with an asterisk and a bullet and in bold. But we also think about just how the companies and how our performers are sort of evolving as creators and artists. There's an interesting, very short half-life to a performer's life in circus arts. We have some performers in their 50s, depending on their discipline. We have others who are looking at retirement in their early 20s. It's over. If you're a contortionist, that's not something you can do deep into middle age. And so there's this interesting thread that I find really personally satisfying that that a lot of the things that we do touch on. We're always looking for. We're always conscious of how the things that we're doing on the marketing side, or whether we're building out things like Spark. We've had artists that raise their hand and say, "I'm interested in marketing. Can I come and almost do a quasi internship with you? I'm interested in sales." We had one artist from Ka who was interested in entrepreneurship and worked with us on the sales side, raised his hand, volunteered, and left the company to actually buy a company and go out on his own. That was his personal passion, and also just him thinking ahead to about the longevity of his performing career. And so it's an interesting extra layer to ticket sales and all the typical metrics that any business thinks about, that we've got a living, breathing thing here. And so how does the circle of life work within our company? It's something, it's an unusual thing to have to factor in. But, keeping that in mind and keeping that in balance with the things that we're doing on the marketing side are always a part of the picture. And I've failed if I haven't taken that into consideration adequately or balanced those two things well.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. We've covered the need to, or certainly if you want to be a senior marketer, the need to have a bold agenda and not to be afraid to ask the tough questions. We've talked about the need to make sure that you reinvent your brands, and new and improved is not just for packaged goods. It can extend all the way. And as marketers, we need the products to improve and to take advantage of the technology. We also talked about portfolio management and the need to sort of push the product and elevate that. And I think that's so relevant to so many brands. So I've learned a lot from this. Now, my last question for you before we sign off is, do you have some advice for fellow marketers as they look ahead to 2017? A couple of do's and maybe one don't.
Sure. So on the do side, the thing that comes to mind, Drew, is proportionality, and a couple of different ways that takes shape. One is, as I mentioned before, we've got a product that isn't consumed on a daily basis. It'd be great if you want to come to shows daily. You're welcome to it. So just let me know about that.
Okay, good. I'm in.
But because we aren't something that you consume daily, we have to think proportionately about how often we're messaging and creating outreach. And you can't bombard people with messages about something that they're not going to consume for 1 or 2 years. I also think a lot about the proportionality, and this comes up a lot in our business, about digital versus analog. A lot, what the balance of our spending is, digital versus analog, and to answer it, it's about 20% digital, about 80% traditional. But, I get asked sometimes, whether or not so are you working to up your digital proportion? That's the future. That's the new thing. Should you be more 50-50? And there's another proportionality that I have to think about that's organic to my business. And I think it's the thing marketers have to think about honestly for their businesses, which is, for me, digital is incredibly important. Being able to partner with a site like Expedia and know that you've booked a ticket and know that you're coming to town is incredibly important information and creates an opportunity for me to message. That's great. But the reality of the situation is that the real battleground, as we talked about, is on the ground once you set foot at the airport or once you drive into town. So things like taxi toppers and building wrap and marquees and all those great out-of-home things will never stop being a part of my mix.
Yeah.
It's not about being modern or not. It's not about me being a Luddite or not. I certainly embrace technology, and that's not the thing. But I think that you have to be honest, and especially in this accelerating world of new opportunities and new channels and new platforms and things that you can do, you have to just take a breath and remember, what is it that works for me? What works for my audience? At a place like Cirque, there's always that reminder that, again, that taxi topper is worth its weight in gold to me, and it couldn't be more analog, right? And so I think related to that, on the don't side of things, I would say, it's a corollary to this. Don't get too absorbed by chasing big data, especially if it's not relevant to you. But you particularly don't want to get so wrapped around the axle with this big concept of big data that you lose sight of the importance of instinct and intuition. It's still the hallmark and the heartbeat of what we do as marketers. You have to have an opinion and you have to have a gut. And so big data becomes a fantastic tool as a part of that. But at the end of the day, you still have to know your product intimately, and you still have to have some sense of it, that even with a wet finger, you have directionally a great idea of what you need to do, even if you don't have, plugs in the wall and boxes and data and stacks of information to go on.
Well, I tell you, I know you're doing a great job. I go to Vegas, once a year for CES, and of course, I always see before I've even left the airport, there's typically a wonderful neon somewhere, and then you have a premier billboard just coming right out of the airport that's impossible to miss. And that's even if you've looked down at your phone, you still see that, and that's it's funny because as much of a renegade as I am, I'm finding more and more marketers are zigging and saying, yeah, you know what, we could do digital, but the opportunity's over here. And it's just amazing how some folks are even finding success with print. What? Wait, yeah, they're finding success with print. So following the herd is not necessarily the route to success. So I really want to thank my guest today, Alma Derricks, who is Vice President Sales and Marketing, Resident Shows Division of Cirque du Soleil. Be sure to go see a show next time you're in Vegas or when they come to your town. Alma, thank you so much for your time.
You're so welcome.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.